Alright, we got a Remington 870 left-hand barrel here. He wants this cut down. It's 30 inches now. Wants it cut down, we're going to go about here somewhere. That'll be 25 and a half, 25 and 5/8, something like that, because you got to cut it at the stanchion. So, like this is here, focus. You got to cut it past the stanchion. You can cut the rib back to the stanchion and then clean everything up. But this one is also threaded for choke tubes, and these old barrels are real thin. So this is a standard Remington choke right here. You can see how thick that is and how big it is. And this is the Tru-Choke thin wall style. They are extremely thin, and you can put those in a lot thinner barrels. So some of your higher end and older guns that were never meant for screw and choke tubes, this is your best option. Wind chokes in that are, I think, 50 thou or a little better, I think. They have to be at least 50 thou wall thickness, thicker than these require. So we're going to get that in this barrel after we get it cut down. I don't think I'll ever get this to come out on camera, but looking in this barrel, a 725 bushing will fit in from the chamber end, but from the muzzle end it stops right at the beginning of the actual barrel, just past where the choke tube ends. Guessing there's a burr in there, and pretty sure I can see it. So I don't know, I'll mess with that a little bit and see if it's an issue. I don't think so, but I think he would have noticed it beforehand. But anyway, all that's going to get cut off. So we'll get this one cleaned up, cut down, and get that set up in the jig to ream it and thread it. All right, so give you an idea what this is going to be or what we're doing. This has to, like I said, it has to be cut in front of the stanchion. You cut it out just like the factory is. You leave about I think it's 150 thou roughly out at the end, and in front of the stanchion. Then you cut the rest of the rib back to the stanchion, leave that barrel out there, and you can clean up the muzzle from there. So this one, we're not cutting down to 18, so we don't care exact length. But this will tell you. Let's see here if we can zoom in just a little, huh? Here we go. Yeah. So this is pretty close to where it's going to end up. So this is where the last stanchion is. So we'll cut the rib right there. We'll file it back or machine it back usually. So I gotta put this in the mill to drill the front sight bead. Front sight bead's out of frame. There we go. So this is going to be moved back to here, and since I got to put it in there to square it all up anyway, I machine that off, and it ends up pretty nice that way. So the barrel's going to be cut out here somewhere, and we can trim it right back and square it up. So that'll end up being, and that is pretty close right there. So you'll be right about 25 and 3/4, 25 and 5/8, something like that. So it's not an incredible difference, but you know, swinging that 30-inch barrel around, taking off 4.5 inches makes a decent difference. We'll get that cut and then trued up in the jig. Go from there. So a little more at the choke reamer and taps. So this is the reamer for the Tru-Choke thin wall. This is the tap for, this is it's the same for the Remington or the Winchester. The tap is the same, the ream is different. So the threads are actually the same, is all that matters. And you can only tap them so far based on what's reamed. So this is an old reamer for the Winchester style that comes out on camera. Those actually fit together. So this is the old school way of doing it, and this is what I had for the Tru-Choke, and I ended up just ordering a new tap for that. So we're going to use a brand new tap on that guy. These things are really expensive, but if you're going to be doing a few of these, they pay for themselves eventually. You can sell how much oil they got all over everything to protect them. So anyway, take care with those. Don't beat them up. Leave them in the sleeves. all that stuff. You want to make sure you don't damage these guys because they are pricey. Alright, so the plan is to cut that barrel on those marks, just the rib. So that way, as I cut the barrel with the bandsaw, I don't have to worry about it catching on the rib and pulling or tweaking or breaking any of the stanchions loose. And yeah, we got all the contact areas taped off, so we don't have to worry about scratching. There we go. I use that down by hand just to make sure it's not catching and pulling or anything. That barrel's pretty thin right there. So this is the jig, got a crank you can turn by hand. This actually puts a little bit of tension on it and pushes everything into the barrel. And the barrel kind of sits up here. You got this end down here that's all adjustable, all these holes. I just put a block with some carpet in here just to keep it from rotating. But I usually hold this by hand just to get a little idea of the pressure that's on everything that you're applying. But you're cranking this by hand anyway. Keep everything lubed up nicely and cleaned out, and it should go smooth. Alright, so here we are cutting the ream, and this jig has a collar that kind of helps you put a little pressure on it, and you just turn the crank by hand a little bit at a time. Make sure everything's nice and true. The barrel can float around a little bit end to end, and then also you can rotate it just basically just over half a turn, because the barrel band that goes on the magazine tube kind of gets in the way of being able to go too far with it. But otherwise, it helps you keep everything nice and straight. And I guess if you want to be in a hurry, you can put it in the lathe, but a vent rib barrel, you'd have to set something up better, and my lathe spindle wouldn't allow for that much space anyway. Alright, if I can do all this with the camera in the way. You got to take this part periodically to clean all of the shavings and everything out of it. So I'm going to show you. There you go. So that is how cruddy they get pretty quick. So I don't know what that was, 15 turns or something, 10 turns, just by hand. So obviously in a lathe, you're going to have to be taking it in and out a lot anyway, so it can be a bit of a pain. I have done them in the lathe. Some of these more rare barrels or whatever, like to take your time and do it right, you know. Alright, if I can do all this with the camera in the way. You got to take this part periodically to clean all of the shavings and everything out of it. So I'm going to show you. There you go. So that is how cruddy they get pretty quick. So I don't know what that was, 15 turns or something, 10 turns, just by hand. So obviously in a lathe, you're going to have to be taking it in and out a lot anyway, so it can be a bit of a pain. I have done them in the lathe. Some of these more rare barrels or whatever, like to take your time and do it right, you know. So again, just take this out and clean it. Look at all that crap on there. Good stuff. So just blow the reamer off. Make sure the end of the barrel's all nice and clean, and then get plenty of lube back in there. This is my home concoction of cutting lube. So got plenty in there for the bushing, get plenty on the reamer, and then set everything back up. Lock it down, and we can commence cutting again. Put my block back in to hold the barrel. So again, as I'm holding the collar by hand off camera here, you can't see that, but that's pushing this ream in, and it should start cutting here right about there, I think. Maybe 2 more turns, huh? Yep, I can feel it starting to grab a little. So right there she's cutting, and all I do is just kind of put light pressure on the collar, and it keeps pushing it in just a little bit. And I make sure rotate the barrel around a little bit here and there just to make sure everything is nice and smooth. You can actually see it if it's going off anywhere, but the guide or the bushing inside the bearing or inside the barrel keeps everything nice and aligned very well. So those things are made in 1,000th increments, and I've got a few blanks, so if I ever need to, I can cut them down and make them fit the barrels perfect. That one was exactly a 725 bushing, I think it was. Yeah. So anyway, a little more cutting, and this thing will actually face the end of the barrel too. I left a little more on there than I needed to. I think I actually got to take off about 100,000th, but that's okay. That makes it a nice and cleaned up muzzle and pretty square, at least as good as you could do in the lathe. Alright, this should be about the last time cleaning this out, because I just started cutting on the actual muzzle, so got to go a little bit further, so it's going to be cutting basically everything now. So I'll get this out of here and get it all nice and clean, and then we'll actually finish it off. Okay, so adjust this collar. It'll get it right up there to the barrel, and real light touch. You can see it's actually facing that muzzle now. Sweet. Adjust this collar just a little bit. Yeah, really taking some material off there. Cool. That'll get it all nice and squared up and pretty. Alright, so it's all reamed out. Got the tap lined up. Just got to adjust the collar here a little bit and get her pushed in. Not easy to do with the camera in the way. The things I do for you guys. It's especially not easy to do when I got all this cutting oil all over my fingers, but that's kind of necessary. Okay, so we should be pretty close. Yeah, I think so. I think she's going to start cutting. Yep. Nice. So once it's got a little pressure, it'll pull itself in. You don't have to keep using that adjustment collar to push it anymore. And 44 threads per inch is a lot of turns to get it in there. So we'll back it out, clean it off, start over again. Alright, so this is where we're just going to square up the end of that rib and get it chewed back. Actually, I got it right here. The end of the factory barrel, like that. Make it look about like that. Somehow I'm moving the camera all around here. This one's just taking material off this way, and then the other way, so climb down, just nice clean pass. Makes a lot nicer finish. I think we are just about there. And compared to the factory, nice. Okay, so we find the end of the rib. and then we'll measure in for the sight bead, but then I got to find the center of the bead, or the rib too, so fast forward through that maybe, huh? So we use a half function on the DRO for that. That gets us the middle of the rib, and then just gotta drill it. So you call me crazy, but for the most part, I go and pretty much do this exactly the way you should drill and tap every hole. I use the mill. Some people use a drill press. I use a mill with the DRO. It gets me about as perfect as I can be. I use the center drill, or a spotting drill here, to put a mark in it. Then I will come back and drill it out with a pilot, and then drill it out to the full size. Then in the mill, I'll actually tap it, so everything keeps aligned and perfect as can be, right? Because, you know, these things matter. Also zero out the DRO there, and we'll run this down in. Some more oil back in there. Start drilling. I'm gonna have to zero that back out again. Eyeball right there. Should be able to tell because we'll hit the bottom of the other hole. I think that's about it right there. So again, I kind of stick with the theme of overkill on a lot of this stuff. So this is a slightly beveled or slightly taken down starter tap, because a regular starter tap will bottom out in there and not do anything. Here, let me get this out so you can see the whole thing. So this is the whole setup. So the mini mill with the tap follower and the tap setup. Focus. There we go. We're focused. All right, so this is just the starter tap, and I'm probably only going to get about 2 turns out of this before it bottoms out. So we'll just take that right back out and put in. If these will even come out. Yeah, the top one's a plug, bottom tap, whatever, and this is more like a plug.
Court ruled those deportations must now include due process. Suspected foreign nationals would have the ability to fight their removal through the courts. If everybody's given some due process under what the Supreme Court decided, sounds like a traditional deportation all of a sudden.
It's awfully close to that. Yes, that's what it would look like.
The Supreme Court's decision also leaves open the door to more challenges of the administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act, and Tom Warwick, a former official at the Department of Homeland Security, challenges are imminent.
It's highly debatable right now whether what is going on.
Warned due process is critical because, she wrote, citizens could be taken off the streets, forced onto planes, and confined to foreign prisons with no opportunity for redress if judicial review is denied unlawfully before removal.
Scott McFarland joins us now.
So yeah, I like to just use a little bit of red Loctite. Blue would hold, but since this is not something that should be coming apart very often, red is good. And as long as the hole is clean and the threads are clean, I just 1 drop is plenty. I'd like to put it on both the hole and the threads of whatever I'm screwing in, just enough to make sure that everything's covered. See me shaking around like mad there, but get her going in. Big nubby fingers getting in the way all the time, but yeah, we'll make it happen. Yeah, that's starting in. Good. And yeah, just a little bit of torque to get her tightened down. Alright, so there we are, all cleaned up and cold blued, and one of these thin wall chokes screws right in there. I always get them about finger tight, and there's no reason to get them any tighter than that. And that is not in focus. Like perfectly flush right there. Nice. Looks good. So yeah, get out there, buy some tools, and make something better.